i dobrodošli na prvi panel ovogodišnjeg Beeryarda koji se bavi bačvama i starenjem piva u bačvama, zapravo to je krivo ispalo. So, hello and welcome to this Beeryard Festival's first panel about, basically it's about barrel aging and barrels themselves. My name is Marco, I'm one of the administrators from Beeryard. Most of you know me already, so I'll basically keep my mouth shut from now on. And I'll basically let the others introduce themselves here. So let's start to my left. Evan, take the mic and introduce yourself, hopefully. Okay.
Yeah, like this?
Yeah.
So, my name is Neven Vorkovic. I'm a spirits blogger and distiller. For a while now, traditional distilling for years and years, and with a plan to start my own distillery soon, within a year or so. And hopefully, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, I worked in the States in Cedar Ridge Distillery in Spirit Works. So, basically that's it, and here's the microphone.
There we go.
So yeah, hello guys, my name is Jeff Bradford. I'm originally from California, and what I do now is I travel around the world making beer, wine, and spirits, and highlighting the brewer, winemaker, distiller, and I showcase the process of how beer, wine, and spirits is made around the world. So barrel aging is fascinating for me, and I'm glad to be part of this discussion today. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. So let's go. Okay, you have the mic.
Hi, I'm Nave from Slovenia, from the Reservoir Dogs Brewery. We have a few barrel-aged programs. I hope I can tell you more about them if you're interested. Hope so.
They are. They will be here otherwise.
Just a short introduction, thanks.
Hi, my name is Luka. I come from Slovenia. I am the owner of Rojnikov's Hop Farm and Green Gold Brewing Company. We started our barrel-aged program this year, and I already got some little bit of experience from that, so I hope I can help you with that.
Hi, I'm Sasha Stula from Zagreb, and I'm winemaker. The winery is located near Jasterbarsko. I have a production at about half a billion liters per year. All kind of different grape varieties, and also I am aging reds and also some small amount of white wine in the barrels. Thank you.
Okay, thanks guys. So the problem with a subject like this, which is then too wide, is how to start the panel. So I'm just gonna ask, regarding people who are more into spirits, more into beer, more into wine. So basically, how do you, as a brewer, as a vintner, as a spirit producer, how do you look at barrels? What do you look for in a barrel? And basically, in general, what are the characteristics of barrels that you look for? So it's a pretty wide question, but still, let's try to do something from here. So, okay, let's start with, for example, we're going to return to brewing itself, so let's start with the spirits people, so go ahead. So what do you look for in a barrel? So why are barrels basically important for the spirits you deal with, which is mainly whiskey? Okay, we all know that barrels are extremely important in whiskey production, so tell us a little about what they do to, say, the distilled spirit that comes into them, and what you look for in barrels regarding that.
Well, before you look for barrels, you need to know what kind of spirit you want. So it all depends what kind of whiskey or brandy or rum you want to produce, what aromas, what taste you're looking for. So, you know, mostly it depends on that, and then there are so many variables, so many possibilities with barrels, from French oak, American white oak, Hungarian oak, which is practically the same thing as our Slavonian oak, and then you have Spanish oak and Japanese, Mizunara, then you have mixed barrels where cooperages make barrels with mixed staves for example, Maker's Mark made lately, you can choose a barrel with 5 different staves from 5 different types of oak. So it all depends what you want from the spirit.
So yeah, in general, so the barrel itself is basically can be regarded as a sort of an ingredient itself, same as, for example, different yeast produce different flavors, different malt produce different flavors, so different barrels add different flavors and act differently upon the spirit itself or the beer itself, and give different results.
That's a good analogy that you just made, because with yeast and barrels, it's you know how they say, you know, from what I hear from my brewers friends, like it's the yeast that makes beer, and in most cases the barrels, you know, are the ones that are they're making like 50-60% of the taste, of the aroma of the whiskey or brandy or something. And so it plays a big part in the whole production process.
So Jeff, you seem to be the most widely experienced person here regarding different spirits and basically beers and wines when it comes to barrels. So how do you, let's form the question this way. Perhaps, what do you look for example, when you say, okay, let me rephrase that for a second. So let's put it this way. Let's move on to how barrels, different kinds of wood impart different flavors on the beer. The sizes of the barrels when it comes to beer. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So can you expound a little on that question?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I travel around, you know, there are so many barrels. I know Nevon highlighted a couple of them. You got American oak, you know, you've got French oak, you've got Hungarian oak, you've got tequila, you know. So it's really understanding what beer you want to make, and then how that beer complements that barrel, or vice versa, right? So the biggest thing for me is finding out what barrel you want to utilize, and then say, okay, do a little homework about it. Okay, we know that right off the bat, American oak gives off what type of tendencies: vanilla, leather, you know, so on and so forth, French. And then you can even go down the rabbit hole even further and talk about the chard levels, okay?
Of course, yeah.
You know, chard levels give off, you know, some complexities to whatever you want to put into that barrel. And really, you know, and one of the things I want to tell brewers or craft brewers out there is that don't be afraid to try different things. I will tell you that taking a tequila barrel and putting in a wheat beer into it will produce an amazing beer. So there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's just understanding the barrel that you want to use, doing a little homework on it. And I always, when I talk to brewers or distillers or winemakers around the world, they give me a few different lessons. One of them being fresh is best. So, you know, if you're looking for a barrel to utilize, find out how, you know, has it been, you know, utilized, or has it been empty for a while? Clean beers, what I mean by clean beers, older wheat beers, you're better off putting those into spirits barrels, okay? And your sour beers going into wine barrels. It just makes life easier for you when you're making those beers. Yeah.
So basically, different styles should be looked upon when it comes to deciding which barrel should be used. For example, it makes no sense to, well, mostly makes no sense to use a certain barrel when it comes to certain styles.
Yeah.
So basically, people have tested that, and like basically, you have to have in your head basically what you should expect from those styles. So, for example, doing sours, say Flanders Reds, you won't use a whiskey barrel. Basically, you'll use a red wine barrel, or a clean barrel. So. Basically depends on the kind of beer you want to achieve, and different combinations give out different results, obviously. But yeah, you all know that. Thing is, you want to add something?
No, I just wanted to add really quick. Again, don't get great. And what I really wanted to bring up, I actually brought from, I was just making absinthe up in the Val del Travers in Switzerland. absinthe, obviously, it's licorice flavor. They put it in barrels, and I brought a bottle up here, and I want everybody to try it because, again, don't be
We'll
afraid.
do that later on.
Yeah, exactly. And
So you're not walking away.
yeah, exactly. I want people to understand that you think it's absurd or it's crazy, but it actually can work. You do a little bit of homework, and you'll see, after this is all done, and I'd be gladly for you guys to try some barrel-aged absinthe afterwards.
Okay, basically, when it comes to different types of barrels, when it comes to different types of spirits that are being produced or alcoholic beverages, so for example, when it comes to wine, when it comes to most spirits, you'll basically want to use fresh barrel when it comes to most spirits and most wines. When it comes to beers, generally reused barrels are used. You can use both new barrels and basically barrels that held, as Jeff said, like tequila, wine, whiskey, different kinds of spirits. Beer is special in that aspect because it can basically take any barrel. You just won't age wine in whiskey barrels, for example, or tequila barrels. It might be interesting, but yeah, okay, now probably there's something to say about that.
One thing about the difference between beer and between spirits.
Fermentation versus distilled.
When spirits go into the barrel, they are somewhere between, let's say, it's starting with 63% alcohol till 70, 72, 75 even. So the impact of spirits on the barrel is so much higher than the impact of beer. For example, if you put beer that is 6.5, 8%, maybe 9, I don't know. But it won't have such impact on barrel. So of course, this is why it's important for you to choose the barrel carefully, what you want to age, and you want to keep it longer inside, so you could pick up those flavors that are left from the spirit that it was before, from the broken down barrel. Or if you're using a newer barrel, then you also, like Jeff said, you're looking for a toasted, you're looking for a charred barrel. The level, it's a lot of planning. But of course, just play with it, and that's it.
That's the main point, basically. So I'm going to turn to you guys right now, because especially Sasha here, because you're a winemaker, basically. So you deal mostly with, I'm guessing, pure new barrels. I'm guessing from Croatian producers. So I'm guessing probably at a certain point you use some foreign barrels as well, or only Croatian? Or?
No, I have all kind of mixed, and also I use also used barrels and brand new barrels.
Okay.
You must know there is some. Why do winemakers use used barrels?
Yeah.
There's when you are deciding to use used barrels, there's only one thing. Why do you use it? Is it only because of micro-oxygenation? There is no chance to have any influence this already used barrels on the wood, on the amount of
charring.
Yes.
Toasting.
There's toasting. Yes. No characteristic of this barrel, is it French or American oak, only micro-oxygenation. So there's the two way of substitute when you want to when you are using used barrels, how to put the fresh wood inside. This is the first of all, there is chips, and there is also the fresh wooden plates. It goes inside of the barrels. You can use it also in inox barrels, tanks. It's more practical, but you can use it also in used barrels to put it the fresh wood. So then you can have both things. You have micro-oxygenation and you have fresh wood inside it.
Of course, yeah. What I was going to ask you, all of you, basically, because you've used probably Croatian-made and Slovenian-made barrels. How do they fare compared to, say, French barrels or American? If you can compare that, are the quality levels the same or higher?
No, there is totally different. We can talk now. I can talk about the barrels.
Of course,
hours,
different
for
wood makes
hours.
different barrels, of course.
Different woods, different types of woods, different producers of woods.
Of course.
From now time, I have in my winery, I have French oak, I have American oak, I have Slavonian oak, our Croatian, yeah. I have Russian oak, which is totally brand new one. They call it stone barrel. It's totally something new. It's totally different tannins and totally different. It's something new. And I have, I was driving here, I was trying to number how many oak producers I have. I have 12, I think, different. They're all kind of different. Usually they they send to me some certificate, what characteristic it's the wood inside it. But it is so much inputs different when you put the different wines. Maybe it's some specific, maybe I have 1,000 liters of the same wine, but every barrel it's different, but the parameters of this wood producer is the same, but they are totally completely different.
So they have different flavors. They probably, some of them dry out the wine more, perhaps add more tannins, add more different.
When winemakers decided what kind of wood want they pick barrels, we are thinking about, I would say, 3 flavors.
Okay.
Is it smoke, chocolate, or vanilla?
Vanilla, yeah.
And in between these 3 varieties, there is some subtypes that you can pick.
Okay, so, yeah, okay. So basically, since I'm guessing that, say, Croatian oak would be the most easy one to get here, what does Slavonian oak impart, for example, from your experience?
Slavonian oak can put all these 3 different flavors.
Okay.
Slavonian oak in Croatia, there is 6, 7 barrel producers, which are totally different. But I would say there is only one very seriously.
Okay.
So which is constantly. It is for me personally, it's Golub from Jastabarsko.
Okay, I think I've read about it.
His philosophy is very, it's continuously. When you buy barrel 2008, you can buy the same barrel next 10 years.
Oh, okay, of course.
So this is the main thing from Croatian producers. Besides that, there is producers very famous and very big in Italy, and also there's so much in France. So
of course, yeah.
And also for me, one of the best one is from Austria, which I especially like.
Okay, so let's start with Slovenian friends. Basically, how this barreling scene is basically their barrel making scene. So what kind of barrels? Well, basically, what kind of wood is mostly used, and the quality of the barrels. Are you satisfied with them? And are you basically using for your beers reused barrels or like fresh barrels?
Okay, in general, we have 2 separate lines. The first line is sour line, which is aged in mulberry and acacia wood. A few times used wine barrels, and the main idea there was not to get so much wood flavor as vanilla, chocolate, as you said, smoke, and anything else. But the idea was just to get the oxygen, so the micro-oxygenation. The base difference, we didn't just use the woods. We also used the yeast, the wild yeast and bacteria, the microbiology of a certain terroir. This terroir is in Brda.
Wine region is
wine region, the most famous wine region in Slovenia, because we have a lot of friends there that they're using their own yeast to produce natural wines, orange wines. And our friend Alex Klinec was open to the idea that we can age the beer on the wine yeast. So we produced the Medana line, and it was the first edition was our Saison, aged on the wine yeast, natural wine yeast. Then we put it fermented beer into the barrel, and let's see what happens. So they started re-fermenting because different yeast and different bacteria, they can eat the sugars that beer yeast cannot. So after a year of aging, we put the beer into bottles. It was quite interesting, but we already drank and sold all.
Yeah, I can get it.
And then we started a new line, which is fermented only with the local wine yeast. This is so just brewed, transferred to the oak, to the barrels, and fermented. The second line is with used spirits barrels.
Yeah. So rum barrels, I think.
Yeah, rum barrels, tequila barrels, mezcal barrels, and ammoniac barrels. Yeah.
Okay, so those beer like coming up.
So the first product we released was the Black Hole. That was our imperial stout aged in used rum barrels. It was an American oak. Firstly, it was used to age Jack Daniels for 3 years, and then 10 years for some rum somewhere in Barbados, I think. And then we bought them to our collection.
Third use, basically, like two different spirits.
Yeah, two different spirits, yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, Luca, what are your experiences with basically barrels in Slovenia?
So right now our program is very small. At this moment we only have one beer in progress. We're actually gonna release it in cans. So that's gonna be a first in this area. And what we did is we actually brewed an imperial stout specifically for barrel aging program. We only released a couple of kegs of this beer before we barrel age it.
So yeah, the clean version. So.
Yeah, it's called Oil Wars. And then we got these fantastic barrels of rum from Peru. What's important is that you get them bug-free and fresh, like everybody said before. We connected with a company in Portugal called J. Diaz. They supply a lot of world's best breweries with barrels, and we were able to get some of that rum barrels. And right now we are, as soon as we get some time, we're gonna put that beer back to the inox tank, and then we're gonna can it and maybe some kegs too. For the future, we already have an order for tequila barrels and cognac barrels. But those haven't yet arrived. We do our barrel program in winter like we did last year. We're going to continue.
So from your experience, say that's a pretty practical question, does barrel-aged beer really sell that better from the others? So is it basically something you do as a beer to basically like, I want to make that, I really want to make that, and it's going to be a great beer, or is it financially viable in your opinion?
I don't think it is.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it.
True. Yeah,
that's true.
If you
like,
start a new brewery, you cannot live with your barrel-aged problem.
Of course.
Yeah. You start a brewery, buy fermenters, buy the brew house, then you wait a few years, maybe pay the rent. Hopefully, yeah. And then you release your first beer. So I think
that's basically an art. So you're just expressing yourself as a brewer, as
yeah, because we can do it as they did in Belgium.
Of course.
I think they got first barrels from France, and they were infected with their culture, and then they started raising their own culture in their brew houses. So we have the same idea, to raise our own culture. Because we are in the wine region, we have our culture. We don't need, why would we buy bread and bacteria from Belgium? Yeah, they're famous.
Of course, yeah, you have to develop something that's especially from your region, from your country, and that's completely actually normal. And why shouldn't you be able to make something that's as good, as interesting as Syrian, and why not? So, another practical question. Oh, okay.
No, you promised. No,
Oh, okay. So, let's have one from Philippines here who brought us cups for the absent. Yeah, we should probably. Yay! Okay, so let's return to another practical question. So, barrels versus chips versus plates. What are the main differences and different ways that they should be used? For example, as a beer judge, I experienced quite a lot of homebrew that was far too tannic, far too many tannins there, too astringent. How do you avoid that? And how do you use, say, for example, chips to their fullest potential? I'm not sure who among you used chips most, but so.
We didn't.
You didn't? Okay, so I experienced it. You haven't. Okay, so Jeff, how do you?
So I don't have experience, but what I see is traveling around. I've made lambic with anybody heard of Lindemans?
Of course.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I'll
everyone
tell
has.
you, they export to 69 different countries. Do you think they have, space to fit that many barrels to export? No, they have these stainless steel containers, and they're adding wood chips to it. That's how they do it. If you're a smaller scale, you can get away with the barrels, but they're having to do that. How long it took them to figure out that process of how much wood chips they need to do, they wouldn't tell me. But bottom line, you go into Lindemans, you might see 10 barrels, and you see 20 huge stainless steels with a warehouse full of these chips in it. And for commercial use, that's what they've got to do to maintain the demand for the consumer.
Yeah, I'm basically assuming that you have to basically dose the amount of chips used per barrel and the amount of time the beer is held on the chips. I was hoping that someone would actually have experience with that. And if you guys here among the pros and among the homebrewers who was actually completely satisfied with what they've done and know the best way to achieve basically a beer that isn't ruined by too many tannins and that's chip aged, barrel aged. Okay,
Yeah,
don't be shy.
the chips are actually, you get the tannins, you get the flavor, but basically you need the oxygen. As a chemist,
okay.
I can say to you that the softening of the tannins, the base reaction itself needs the oxygen.
Okay, so that's probably an important thing to basically say to them. So, beer not to be too tannic, it basically needs oxygen. So, if I understood correctly, okay. Okay, so.
Maybe you didn't know, there's a machine which you can put on the inox tank.
Oh, okay.
It's micro-oxygenation, maxi-oxygenator. So this is the best way to make the combination chips in inox tank with the micro-oxygenator. It's very simple machine which you can dose on the ppm level oxygen inside of the barrel.
Is it viable for homebrewers though? Is it too expensive or is it just...
no.
No, okay.
But the real question is this industry or craft?
Okay, let's leave it for the next panel.
To make the, if you want the same beer, as you said before, you can order the same barrels for 10 years. These trees grow the same for 10 years. Was the weather the same for 10 years? I think that barrel aging is an art, not an industry.
I could agree for the number of 3 position of the best aging wine is definitely barrel. But first, the barrel is it's not so cheap to buy it. That's number one reason. The second thing is that you cannot at the right moment you cannot order it enough barrels for your own product. The third
With same
one,
characteristics, I assume that you want to keep the same level of quality.
yes, but if you don't have the enough space inside of the winery or I don't know brew company, this is just another substitute of using the micro-oxygenation with the machine and also the chips. This is the way of thinking. We all want to buy in our barrels to have cyclus year per year, to have it aged wine to put on the market. But for us, it's very big problem. The space, also it's the financing this new barrels, which can be used in my particular way. Only three different types of three series of wine in one barrel. After that, it's only have the possibility to have a micro-oxygenation. So I agree with you when you say that it's art. Yeah, I agree with it.
I actually have a question, basically not a question, but here testing a few guys because I'm pretty sure that there are people here who don't know the definition of micro-oxygenation and they're probably Googling it right now or something like that. So can you say in a few words what that actually is for them?
So the micro-oxygenation, it's the oxygen that comes through the wood to the beer. Basically it's an oxidation. So what you don't want to have in your regular production, I hope, but you want to have, when it comes to barrel age program, it's necessary. It's necessary. But the main difference is that oxidation is the too high level of oxygen. And micro-oxygenation is just the dosing, as you said before, through the, maybe it's similar to carbonation stone, so very small pores inside.
Very small.
Yeah, so you can dose, you can check, I will give you 2 milliliters per month, I think, of oxygen. You can control it, but the oxygen that comes through the wood, it depends. The thickness of the wood, the growth rate of the tree itself, so the Slovenian oak, the American oak, and the French oak, they have different speed of growth. So the size of the pores is
basically the terroir of sorts.
Yeah, the terroir and the weather. You can tell more about it.
For example, with French oak, it depends a lot from which forest in France is. You have, of course, you have Allier.
You have very controlled where the certain wood comes from.
Yeah, of course. You have from Blois, Limousin, Allier, many different forests and many different characteristics of the wood. But on the other hand, American oak, American white oak, from most of the parts of US, of Northern America, it is the same. And one of the specifics of Slavonian oak that it has tighter grain than most other oaks. So the oxygenation and
There's less of it, I assume, than...
yeah, it gets, it doesn't get in so easy as in French oak, but it pulls out much more aroma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so every type of tree, and then you also have to calculate in the climate where you age the spirit. So if you're in a warm climate like Croatia is, especially if you're somewhere on the coast, I mean, even here in Zagreb, in continental parts, you get temperatures up to 35, 40 degrees. So, it pulls much more water and alcohol out, and which is so much different than with Scottish distilleries, for example, where it's much milder climate, where it's more humidity. So, there are so many different factors, and like I said before, it all depends what are you looking for in your spirit, in your beer, in your wine.
Of course, for example, but when it comes to brewers, for example, some of them probably don't have much of a choice when it comes to getting, say, used barrels, but I'm guessing that they should probably then take into consideration the kind of barrels that they have, the kind of spirit that was in there, and perhaps brew a beer that might end up that fits the barrel itself, like perhaps that
To adjust the beer
for the barrel itself. So, did you do that? Did you have any experience with that, or?
Yeah, we did some.
Sort of.
We did some tests, but our program with the spirit barrel is very young, because I said before we just released the first version of the Imperial Stout, the barrel aged Imperial, and the barley wine aged aged in Armagnac with and blended with barley wine aged in rum barrels is just in bottling, so it will be released,
Soon.
I hope, this year.
Oh, cool. So now I'm considering another question. So basically, is there anything you guys really want to ask her about, or is there any question that any of you should really want to pose to these guys? Is there anything you really want to know that these guys can know about? Like, don't be shy, just ask the question. Oh, come on. Yeah, there's somewhere probably like, okay, back there. I think Martin, okay.
I have a question for Beeryard.
Da, ugasi vibraciju kogoda je.
For Beeryard, have you used only spirit barrels or have you tried fresh barrels?
We haven't tried fresh barrels yet because the idea is that the fresh barrel is too aggressive to release a version that has been aged only in fresh barrels. Maybe it could be useful to blend something, but fresh barrel, not yet.
I think.
But very, as I said before, I don't know if you're here. We have a few times used wine barrels that don't give the wood characteristic to the beer because we are looking for other aspects of the barrel aging.
Okay, I think that Krešo has some experience with fresh wood. I think Krešo, ti si koristio svježe ili?
Not fresh.
Okay, mislim, chips.
I want to connect geographically small area with my beer. So I
Okay.
use the barrel from schnapps, from raki.
Okay, it was a Schnapps
So
barrel,
it's
yeah.
plan barrel, and I think it's very important to have the barrel which is you must connect the barrel with your product and to do something which is very locally, very specific.
Of course, if you can do that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't agree with you that if you put chips in your beer in a stainless steel, it's industry. You know, maybe in the past time, I come from brewery which is 118 years old, and in the past time maybe we are like you. We are just craft in a small area. Now we are what we are, and we want to try everything which we can. And I tried with wooden chips, and I agree that you must study some things with the wooden chips. I didn't. When I use chips, I didn't have experience that chips has different granulation. So it means that the area of extraction is different. So this is something which we must learn. So I think there is a space for experiment, but I think
From experimentation comes knowledge.
about some Slovenian schnapps to connect it with beer. I think it's very important to use the local wood, the local product, the local.
I agree with you, but you cannot control the surface of the chips, but you can control the surface of the sieves and the wooden balls you put inside, and that's pretty much is industry. If you have
but you know,
the constant surface and the constantly new oak.
Yeah, but you know, I cannot control the equipment which I have. I have what I have, and I can do, when I do some beers in, for example, I do Imperial IPA 10,000 liter in a fermenter of 120,000. So it's very crazy to do something like that, you know, but I want to do it. And I want to do something which is okay, and I'm not so satisfied with my barrel age. I have two of them there. And,
Yeah, you should probably try them.
I don't have experience, as you probably, in most things, but I want to try. I want to do something which is, for me, very exciting to put it in, to see what is micro-oxygenation in different types of beer, not only imperial stouts, maybe in some lagers. Because in the past time, my brewery had wooden barrels for lagering of ordinary lager beer. It was with some small, what's his name, raisin in, but you know, sometimes wood is come in So it's very interesting. Now I have 2 barrels from, I don't know how old are they. It is barrels from my cellar. I find it in Zagreb. Somebody put schnapps in it. Now it's a beer barrel with schnapps history, and now I want to put some beer in it and see what will I get. And it's for me it's very exciting to do.
Yeah, that's experimentation.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I'm happy because I don't need to do it for money, for selling. I want to do it because I can.
Of course, yeah. Is there anyone else with experience with barrels that want to add something? Andrei, možda? Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, for instance, for other guys, our experience, we released Russian Imperial that we brewed. We released at the same time both barrel-aged and not barrel-aged beer, and I think everyone could notice the difference. The micro-oxygenation. I mean, we aimed for the flavors that the barrel will use. We used a whiskey barrel that was 6 years old from Germany, so not traditional distillery. Luckily, for instance, that is a good thing that those barrels didn't leak, like when we got original whiskey barrels that were disassembled in the States and then reassembled in Germany. Those we had to repair because they were leaking so much and didn't expand and stop leaking, for instance. But I think everyone noticed that the leftover traces of, I would say, imperfect fermentation on those beers that produced acetaldehyde, for instance, aged out really much faster in a barrel than they did. I mean, in the bottle, they're taking time. That beer was brewed 2 years ago now, so we are regularly tasting it. The barrel-aged version we tasted a few days ago is really nice now. So it was total of 2 years, 6 months in a barrel. That one, I mean, oxygen helped to improve the beer for us, and it imparted all the vanilla flavors because we chose charred barrels that, you know, we aimed for a lot of vanilla in that beer.
Yeah, so different levels of those basically are charred, impart different flavors, and that's another thing to look for. You mentioned reparation of barrels, I think, so that's another thing to look for if you need to do that, or the same barrel repair or not will produce different flavors as well, so you have to count on that. And that's basically, those are variables that everyone who's considering barrel aging should look out for. Keep in mind that, okay, so it's this kind of wood is repaired or not, it held this or not, so how is it going to interact with the beer I have? So maybe keep it in mind before you do the beer, but on the other hand, that's experimentation, so maybe you want to disregard that and basically, okay, let's wing it. Or not.
You want a good barrel. I mean, leaking barrel is a
No, that's not one specifically. When it comes to the beer that's used, not the barrel itself, you really don't want a leaky barrel. So yeah.
That's just a question to the beer guys, all of you. So when you make, the beer that you want to age in the barrels, do you put it straight in those wood barrels, or you age it in fermenters first, or? Like
usually it's first it's fermented with brewer's yeast, and then put it in wooden barrels. But with our sour line, we did the complete fermentation on wine yeast in the barrels. Previously used yeast and barrels.
Is that Medana series?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the Medana is divided. It's divided in the beer that has been fermented with brewer's yeast and then put it on wine yeast, and separate line that has been fermented and aged on wine yeast.
Okay, Christian.
When you speak about wine yeast, it's wild wine yeast?
Yes, wild.
Original
from our friend Alex Klinets in Berda.
Okay, there was a question there.
Yeah, I think it would be
sorry.
good for the panel to maybe discuss for other brewers actually receiving barrels and swelling the heads and swelling the staves, temperature, contact time with the beer, stuff like that no one has really discussed yet.
Okay, so
I can share my experience. I mean, we wetted the barrels from the outside because we didn't want to dilute or, you know, you fill the barrel with water, some flavors will go away with that water. So we were keeping them wet from the outside for a few days to swell them. Regular brewery temperature, can't remember. I mean, it was close to winter, so rather cold. And the contact time was decided on taste. So you take regular monthly samples, I think.
Weekly.
Well, I mean, okay, we didn't
So your barrel leaks.
but from there's a funnel down there.
Yeah, I mean, not regular
We have daily
samples.
sampling.
Today we didn't.
Go back.
Okay, will you have any beer left in the end?
That's why we got 6 barrels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
This one was okay.
The reply for you, when I got my first rum barrels, there was still some rum inside, so the barrels were still wet. So I just put that Imperial Stout inside there.
Okay, so Simon, any experience of yours?
Yeah, I guess like a common complaint that I've definitely found in beers, in barrel-aged beers since moving back to Europe, is that they've been aged for too long or too short an amount of time. I feel like also there's a lot of barrel-aged beers I've had have just tasted like a beer with a shot of whiskey inside. I think that often comes from the barrels being not being aged for long enough. Yep. So they're, yeah, that would be my view. With sours and like barrel fermented, oak fermented, I haven't had a lot of non-traditional versions in Europe.
Yeah, the sign of the too short aging, the first sign is harshness.
Yeah.
So the tannins are very harsh, they didn't have enough time and oxygen to condensate, to connect, and to soften. And the second sign, as you said before, was as you drink your beer and the whiskey. It's maybe a too wet barrel, or if you put it just, I don't know, 200 liters of beer inside and 20 liters of rum, whiskey, yeah.
That's too much.
That's too much.
I would think my estimate in our barrels was about maximum 5 liters of rum left in it. Now that I think of, I should have tried that out too.
I did.
Was it good?
But yeah, the too short barrel age is a common problem, and like even too long. And my original plan for our barrel program was to age it for a year, and now it's been like a little bit more than half a year, and I think I'm satisfied with it. And we're gonna can it in late September. So we pretty much stopped it earlier than we planned, just because we wanna avoid that too long barrel aging flavor, you know.
Do you have experience of moving the barrels between like a normal area and the cold room to speed up the effects?
My original plan was to have them stored in a cold room, but then we just left them in our warehouse. And during this summer, I was actually very anxious if those hot temperatures were. We have a pretty well insulated warehouse, but still it can get to about 25 C in the hottest days inside there. So I was a little anxious about that, but as it looks right now, I mean, I haven't tested it today, but I did yesterday. We did good. We avoided that problem.
Okay, so Kresha, I had a question. I think.
Can I just say just a few words about the aging wine? I would say, in my perspective, the main word is playing. You played with not only one barrel. You have all kind of different barrel, and you never pump all the barrels inside one tank and then fill and put it in a bottle. No, then the game just started in my way. And all the other way, then you just starting to play just to see what material, what kind of wine you received in this kind of barrel. Maybe it's maybe it was too long to put it in some kind of barrels. Then you have some based wine, just you can, and then you blend it after that. I will tell you just the story about my wine from 2013 when I pumped it in an inox, and when I tried it, it was totally disaster of the wine. After 1 month, it was totally some different wine that I tasted. I didn't blend it with not aged and not barrel wine. So after that, I blended with some based wine, and on that wine I received the decanter and winemaker of International WC award after that. It was the period 6 months between my way of thinking. It was disaster, and I must notice I didn't have only one barrel. I was playing with 20, 22, 25 different kind of barrels. You know.
Of course, yeah, blending is an important part of quite a lot of beer styles, for example, especially the Belgian ones, so that's completely natural for the brewing scene. Well, it depends on the style themselves. You're basically blending the different sorts of, say, barrel-aged IPAs doesn't seem to make much sense, though it might. Though barrel-aging IPAs doesn't make much sense to begin with, so yeah, definitely. Okay, so Krešo wanted to say something, so let's not...
I want to ask, when you speak about barrel-aging of beer, you count on re-fermentation, you help re-fermentation, or you just left the beer as it is, and then what happens, happens?
You mean in our sour line?
Not only sour, if you go to barrel aging of a beer,
Yeah.
you want to re-ferment
If it is the barrel that has been used for spirits, Armagnac or rum, I don't think that there is much bacteria or yeast alive in
The
that
alcohol
barrel.
content, yeah.
So no, I'm not counting on the re-fermentation in that barrels. Does it may seem that the beer is re-fermenting because of the CO2 going out of the beer, because it's warmer than a fermenter usually. But in our sour line, we are counting on the re-fermentation, as I said, in the fermented saison that has been put on wine yeast. Yes.
Okay, so, Fran? Okay.
I just wanted to ask a little bit about your opinion on the blending part. I mean, okay, in beer part of the industry, okay, I think that could be normal, but in the spirits world, especially whiskey, I don't know. Is it a blasphemy or is it okay to do things like that? Yeah, just everybody, especially for everybody.
So I've been part of Tullamore Duo Irish Whiskey, part of their blending session, and I will tell you, if you can imagine a table from wall to wall filled with over 500 different cups, it's truly an art form. And you got these guys that are specialized in it to mix and match different barrels. Every barrel is assigned, every barrel has the tasting notes, and they're trying to mix and match the perfect blend. So it was amazing to watch. I also got to be a part of Three Fontaine and blending with Lambics. And while I was a fly on the wall, it's just amazing to watch these guys taste and try. And I'm not a brewer, I'm not a winemaker or anything like that. But I will tell you this: the value that I can bring to you guys and some of the brewers out there is, if you have any questions like that, and I can put you directly in contact with Three Fontaine, especially some of your brewers, or Tullamore, or somebody in the whiskey industry.
Introduce yourself again.
Yeah, please let me know, because really there's a lot of brewers. I was with Delirium, brewing beer with Delirium in Belgium, and to think that they have over 70 different barrels that they're experimenting just like you. They have the capital to do that. So what I would say is my recommendation, especially to small scale that don't have the capital, that are lucky to get just one, reach out to those guys and say, hey, what's working? And if you can make that connection, I can make that connection for you guys that are interested. You can figure a lot of crap out, you know what I mean? So, and if I can figure that out and help you guys, I'm more than willing to do that. So please hit me up after this.
I definitely agree with Jeff. It's an art form. It's not a blasphemy. It's one of the things that usually you can read on a lot of portals on internet and everything. You know, somebody wants to make a trend of this, somebody wants to make a trend of that. But it is a craft. You know, it truly is a craft. So you have amazing blended spirits, really amazing. You know, and blended and aged. It's just a group of single malts or like other grain spirits. So you know, and then to put it together to taste differently, but to taste amazing, it really is art.
Yeah, it was funny. I'll tell you, I was brewing with T-Verset. They make a similar style like Rodenbach, and they had about 100 barrels. They named each one of them after a singer. So you can imagine the conversation. Yeah, we're gonna take Michael Jackson and blend it with, you know, this singer Rod Stewart. So it was pretty interesting to the comedy, but they're trying a lot of different barrels. So they're gonna try to, you know, make it fun while they're doing it. Didn't look like fun though.
2 years ago when I was in Scotland, we were already, you know, rushing to get on the plane, and it was our last day, and I had to go. I wanted to buy a bottle of something for a friend of mine, Beeryard, and we stopped by in Glenfiddich, where we haven't visited Glenfiddich before that. So, you know, our common friend Julia from Switzerland, she said like, oh, we'll stop in Glenfiddich, you'll find something there. So I got there and I bought a bottle of Glenfiddich Double X, so Glenfiddich 20. And it's a blend of 20 different barrels, which were blended by 20 Glenfiddich ambassadors. And when I bought this bottle, I brought this bottle back, and a friend of mine and I tasted it, and it was such an amazing spirit, and it was something special. You know, if you ever get the chance, try it. You know, it's an amazing blend. You know.
Can I just reply to you? The blending of the barrel-aged and non-barrel-aged beer, yes, it is possible. But for example, we have re-fermented beer with Brettanomyces, lactose, and a totally different culture that we use in the brewery. So if we put the barrel-aged beer re-fermented with those yeast and bacteria, and not barrel-aged beer that still has some residual sugar inside, it can re-ferment in the bottle, and I believe nobody wants that to have some exploding bottles in the cellar. At least for me.
Anyway, so what are, in your opinion, the best resources when it comes to, say, online stuff or books for people who are interested in barrel aging of any kind, of beers, of spirits, of wines to read or to get? Can you recommend something to people here? Is there something that really you consider an essential read or something like that for people here?
There's a common source that we all know about. It's called the internet.
Yeah. That's why I asked for like something on your site or something like that.
You know, I have several books at home, but like Jeff said earlier, anybody wants to contact me about these things, things that I know. I'm not any specific master or something. I'm just saying, like, what can I help with my experiences and from my travels and the things that I know when I worked in the States. You know, just feel free to contact me about these things.
Okay, so you are a resource. So you guys are resources.
Listen, these fucking guys keep it a secret. We all know that, right? Until you have a beer with them and meet them and get introduced to them, and then
they start
speak the
talking,
world,
yeah.
right? So that's what I've learned. I mean, at first when I came into some of the breweries, once I start talking to them, then they start opening up about it. Again, I go back to, please let me know. I'll introduce you guys, brewer to brewer. They'll be able to share a lot of that stuff. I haven't been able to find anything online or open source to re-educate myself. So, yeah.
Okay, so
This topic
people
of Connect
themselves.
is interesting, but why would you copy someone? why don't try something yourself? You need a resource. I agree with you.
Finance
to know the basis, but the combinations, the playground is infinite. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, but some experiences.
Yeah, the base
It will
experience,
save you
of
a
course.
shitload of
Yeah,
shitty badges.
as I said, the base experience, of course.
I mean, it's not the copy, it's the idea you get from another person. I think, me personally,
The base
with my
knowledge,
stuff, there are some stuff in the world that I would say I would be proud if I managed to copy or get close to what they do. So some guys are so good, but I think that sharing the experience will not be a copy because we don't have the same equipment, we don't have the same mindset, time frame or whatever. So a lot of people that are not in the beer industry ask, oh, is your recipe a secret? No, it's not, because you will never ever be able to repeat it because you don't have my brewery.
Yeah, it's funny what people
So,
acted as if
I
it
don't
was
think
a
it's a
secret.
copy, but useful stuff you can get and then expand.
The two barrels are not the same.
It has 4 walls and 2 hops.
You won't get the same result.
Okay, so are there any questions you want to ask or something like that? Something that's left because you're pretty much near the end.
Is there any absent?
Okay, Simon. There is probably, but Simon has to calm down. You'll get it. Simon.
I just want to add, there are some good books out there and online information. There's a Brewers Association book called Wood, and
Maybe the Brew Up Portugal, the Brewers of Europe, but not everyone has access to it.
Like the American Brewers Association publications, they have Wood and Beer, which is a pretty extensive book that goes into different kind of oaks, aging different kind of beers. There's also a website in Erase the Funk, run by a guy named Brandon Jones. He does a lot of work with barrels. And then Milk the Funk, the Wikipedia is pretty extensive in information on wine barrels. So there are some really good resources if people want to delve further into it.
Okay, so anyone else, or should we just go grab a beer before we continue with the next panel?
Beer.
So I have a few beers with me, so I'm not just talking about our sour line. I actually got it with me to try them. If anyone is interested, otherwise we will drink it.
So you brought like
Don't be
2 pallets of beer, looking at the number of people here.
No, just a sip for everyone.
Of course. So yeah, this is it for the barrel aging and barrel panel. So please give a hand for. Again, sorry you had to wait this much for the panel to start. It had to be this way, it's always like this. So the next panel will start in, say, 15 minutes, I assume. Okay, 15 minutes. Let's go grab a beer